Hello, everyone. My name is Kiguta, and a very warm welcome to everyone who is joining this webinar here in Kenya and in the UK. Today, I am delighted to be speaking to a formidable and consequential figure in law, politics, and human rights, Mrs. Cherie Blair. Mrs. Blair is the founder of the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women, which was set up in 2008 to help women build small and medium-sized enterprises in low and middle-income countries. Cherie is a leading Queen's Counsel, wife of the former British Prime Minister, and was awarded the CBE, which is the Commander of the Order of the British Empire, the highest ranking award in her country for services to women's issues and to charities both in the UK and around the world. And today, through this webinar, Mrs. Blair's services continue with the launch of the Road to Growth program here in Kenya for the very first time. The program by the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women, DHL Express, and Synapis will be crucial in bringing entrepreneurial skills and support to over 3,500 of Kenya's most promising women entrepreneurs. And so with that introduction, it's my pleasure to welcome you all once again to this webinar and to say hello and welcome to Mrs. Blair. Mrs. Blair?
Hello, it's very nice to be joining you today and to celebrate the expansion of our program, as you say, to 3,500 new women entrepreneurs in Kenya, a place that I visited many times and very much look forward to visiting again in the future now that I've been vaccinated.
Right, exactly. And it would be lovely to get past this pandemic. And I want to talk about that very shortly and how it's impacted your work. But if you would indulge me, I'd like our Kenyan audience to get to know you a little bit better, your path and what led you to starting a foundation. Now, you are from what we would probably call here a middle-class household, if that is a correct description. And is that
I don't
correct?
think so. No, I wouldn't say so. I would say I came from a working class household. We lived in a very modest terraced house. My parents were both actors, it's true, but not well-off actors. And I lived with my grandmother. My grandfather was a merchant seaman, so he would go to sea, leaving my grandmother at home and looking after the family. And my other grandfather, my mother's father, was a miner who was a shot firer in the mine. So I wouldn't describe that really as a middle class family. I would say we were a very ordinary working family living in a very ordinary working part of Liverpool.
Right. A working class family and brought up, I believe, in a single parent household with the support of your grandparents. And you were political very early on, I believe, as a teen already joining the Labour Party. And in 2019, you told Channel 4 News, quote, that you were always very conscious about injustice. So tell us more about that and how that led to the work you do today.
For sure. I mean, I think you're right. I actually joined the Labour Party at 16, which was before my husband did, I point out. But I think coming, as you say, my parents split up by the time I was 8. And so my mother lived with her mother-in-law and father-in-law, though he died when I was 14. So I lived in a very female household because Granddad obviously was. In fact, my grandfather was a merchant seaman and he went on the Elder Dempster line down the west coast of Africa. So he would sail down to Ghana and the Sierra Leone and down, ending up in Lagos in Nigeria. And it's amazing to me all these years later that I have such an involvement with Africa. But really our household was a female household. When I was 11, I was lucky I passed the 11 plus, which was an exam that got me into the grammar school, which was run by Sacred Heart nuns. So I was at an all-girls school as well. So I was in a very female environment. But, it soon became clear to me that it was harder for a girl to succeed than it was for a boy. But I was lucky, I was clever, and I managed to get a full scholarship to go to the LSE to study law.
Incredible.
And I didn't really know anything about the law.
Yes.
I just knew I didn't really want to be a teacher, and I wanted to do something practical, because I was very conscious that by going to university, I was the first person in my family to go to university. Everyone else at my age, and in fact everyone else really in our family from the age of 15, 16 would have been working. So me going to university was already depriving my family of the income I otherwise would be able to earn. So I very much wanted to do something that was practical. And my then boyfriend's mum said, Cherie, you're very, you love debating, you're very argumentative. Try the law. And I did, and I was good at it. And that's how I ended up becoming a barrister in London.
That's an incredible journey, and we'll return to it a little later in our discussion. But as you mentioned, we are living in extraordinary times with the ongoing pandemic, and it's exacerbated injustices, inequalities, and in some cases eroded gains, particularly for women. So how has this challenging time impacted women around the world in your experience, and how does it inform now the work you do with them?
Well, it's absolutely the case that all around, this is a global pandemic. So whether we're women here in the UK, or women in Africa, or women in Kenya, this global pandemic has impacted on us all, but obviously in different ways and with different degrees of severity, depending, if you like, where your starting point is. I mean, one simple thing was that I was actually supposed to be in Kenya almost a year ago now, to launch our first launch of the Road to Growth program in Kenya. And in the end, of course, we ended up doing it by Zoom. So we had to, like everyone else as a foundation, work out how were we going to operate in this new world where you couldn't meet people face to face. Now, fortunately for us, because the mission of the foundation has always been to use technology to help women entrepreneurs. We already did a lot of our programs online. And so we were able quite quickly to pivot to do more things online, and to, in particular, we were able, because we already had women that we were engaged with around the world, we did a big survey of the women that we were working with and asking them, now the pandemic is here, what is it that you most needed? And as a result of that feedback from the women themselves, we were able to design programs, particularly in relation to things like e-commerce. How do you set up a website? How do you, when previously perhaps you've been selling directly to the public, but now you can't? How do you pivot to selling to the public? Or maybe sometimes you've been a wholesaler and have been selling through shops that are now closed. How do you get to the customers that way? And so thanks to the help of Cambridge Wireless and in Cambridge and King's College London, we were able to devise some programs which specifically were targeted on the idea of helping women do their best during this pandemic. Now, the pandemic has absolutely affected women entrepreneurs. In fact, we did a survey, as I said then, and we've done another one since, just for this International Women's Day. And according to that survey, nearly 4 in 10 women reported that their businesses could, or maybe will have to close as a result of the pandemic. And that's, of course, a disaster not just for the individual woman, but for their children, their families, and their employees who rely on their work. And so that is something which is particularly important, I think, for small micro businesses as well as medium-sized businesses, because women are very much focused, particularly in Kenya, actually, in the smaller businesses.
Let me ask you this, Mrs. Blair, because you're quite right. They're involved in those smaller businesses. And in a 2019 interview, the one I referred to, you went on to say that you learned very early in life, and if I can quote you, that as a woman, you have to be able to put food on your own table. So given that context that you've given us now, with the impact of COVID, is it your view through that research that putting food on the table is still very much the #1 concern for women around the world? And then what does that then mean or say about women's participation in the larger economy and the kind of interventions that are necessary to support them?
I think it is absolutely the case that when you ask why women are working, outside the home, so much of that is driven by necessity. I mean, the necessity that I saw in my own mother when my father abandoned us, and she, having been an actress and not having got any formal qualifications, ended up working on a fish and chip shop in the dock area of London, not London, Liverpool. But then she managed to get herself a job in a shop and build herself up, and she ended up as a travel manager in a travel agency. But you know, her imperative was, how can I make sure that my children are fed? And that is a pattern that isn't just in Liverpool in the 1960s. It's very much today for so many women around the world. But the other interesting thing I think about women entrepreneurs is so many of them also want to make a contribution to the wider society. And one of the things we've noticed with the women, when we survey the women we work with, so many of them not only help their own families, but give back to the wider community, which always reminds me of my own grandmother, who was very much in our street, the matriarch who people would come to if they had any problems. And, you know, we have those women all over the world who keep their local communities going. But in today's world, of course, there are so much more opportunities for trade. There's so much more opportunities for education, for practical training and learning new skills because of the internet. And that's what the foundation is all about. It's about bringing new ideas. It's about bringing practical ideas. It's about bringing training, because, you know, I can be very good at making jam or chutney, and I can do it really well, and I can get my family members can all say, we really think yours is the best in town. But to turn that into a business, selling a consistent product to people who aren't your family in the sort of numbers that you need, it requires business skills, and not all business skills are that intuitive. You know, you have to be taught those skills, and that's why we've developed these programs, which can be done online or on the mobile phone, such as our Road to Growth program, which we are, thanks to our partners in Kenya, and we are going to be rolling that out through the App Store, through the Google Play Store, to another 3,500 Kenyan women entrepreneurs. And we're doing that thanks to DHL, of course, but also we're working with Synapis. And Synapis are a Kenyan organization who already work with Kenyan women entrepreneurs. And so together we're combining in order to make this program on your mobile phone, which gives you in 6-minute modules those practical tips and those how to turn my skill into a business for the women of Kenya who are looking to do that. And we also have a second area, which is you already have a business, but you want to go to that next stage. And this is, I think, really important, because when you look at Kenya, for example, and you see nearly 50% of the micro and small enterprises are owned by women, but when you look at the medium-sized enterprises, it's 9%. So they're not growing as much as they could. So again, we also have a track there for, you already have a business, but how do I take my business to the next level? And so
Mrs. Blair, let's talk a little bit about that, you know, moving from the small to the middle income and the challenges at that level. And you've talked about the Road to Growth program. How does it specifically tackle perhaps the gendered barriers to business growth? And in your view, what are they?
Oh, well, one of the things that the other thing that we've done with our surveys is we ask our women, have they have they experienced discrimination? Actually, most of them say no, but if you ask them, have they experienced gender stereotypes, the position changes almost immediately. And time again, we have women telling us that they're told things like, you know, women don't understand business, or women aren't good with money, which astonishes me, coming as I did from a household where my grandfather used to give his pay packet to my grandmother, and she then gave him some pocket money, and she distributed the rest of the family finances herself. And I don't think that was unique by any means, but you still get this idea that women don't understand money. In fact, when you're trying to feed your children on very limited budget, you understand money down to the last penny, for sure. But it isn't always acknowledged that that's what you do. And then, you know, stereotypes as well. It's about, why aren't you at home looking after your children? Shouldn't your husband be doing this? These stereotypes we find in Africa, we find in Vietnam, or we find in Mexico. They are across the world, and they come from a view that, you know, women somehow are second-class citizens, that women aren't as equipped or qualified as men. Now, sometimes, of course, it's true that women aren't as qualified as men. Why? Because they haven't had the opportunities for education or higher education, or the chances of education that sometimes the men have. And that's why a program like this, which is geared to women where they are, so that they can fit their learning at a time that suits them, is so important. Because we have to acknowledge, and within our programs we do talk about, how do you do work-life balance? Right. You know, what happens if a family member is against you working, whether it's your father or your husband. I always remember a woman we were working with in Palestine, and she had a sort of lodging house there, and she was supporting her children and her mother and father. And I said, "Oh, where's your husband?" And she said, "Oh yeah, well, my husband didn't really want me to work." So I said, "Oh, so what did you do?" She said, "I divorced him."
Well, that's one way of dealing with it, for sure.
Maybe not for everyone, but nevertheless, these stereotypes about women and what women can and cannot do and where their place is are partly driven, I think, by the fact that we don't always hear women's voices enough.
Right.
You know, when we look, obviously, when we look at the screen, we can see you, but you know, we see so many more men's faces.
Right.
When we talk about business leaders, we still, too many people still think they must be men. And which is why it's a great thing, for example, that Tanzania now has a female president, for example. Right. So that young girls across Africa can see in her and in her predecessors, because Africa has now produced a number of women presidents, that there is no job that's a no-go area for women if they have the talent and skills, and are able to use those talents and skills to their full ability.
And in Kenya, you know, today, just a few hours ago, we're celebrating the nomination of the first ever female Chief Justice. So I completely understand getting women on screen. But, you know, there are things that hold women back from taking that first step. And I think this is why what you're doing is incredible, because it gives them the training necessary, I believe, and the confidence that they would need to step out and to want to, you know, be the face of these programs. And I want to talk about...
let me tell you one other thing that it does, is it allows you to link in, this app now allows you to link in with other women who are doing the course. And one of the women who was using our program in Nigeria, for example, described that as sisterpreneurs. Wow. And it's about that community of women supporting each other as they go on an entrepreneurial journey, that I think is very important. And that's, you know, women are very good, I think, at supporting each other, and the app also enables them to do that.
Let's talk about the pilot that you did in Kenya last year with the Herventures app. What were your findings? How does it work? How do women get on this program, and how are you incorporating, you know, the lessons from that pilot into what you're doing now with the Road to Growth program?
So basically, the Herventure app is the first stage, if you like, of the Road to Growth program. And last year, there were, as I say, we launched it. I was supposed to come, but I wasn't able to come, but we were still able to have the Minister for Women, and we did a webinar about that. And the Herventure app is that what I was describing. It's on the mobile phone, you download it and you go on a track. And on the track, it starts with a story about a woman who wants to start a coffee shop. You know, what do I need to do? So it takes her on a journey to identify the market, to identify what qualities she needs to make it. And there's little quizzes and an opportunity, as I say, to engage with other women. And I think we had about 1,250 odd women who did that last year. And that is now going to be made more widely available. We hope to get at least 3,500 women this time using the Herventure app. But in addition to that, we also have, if you like, a sort of graduate class, which is a more intensive online investment readiness training program. And this is for women who have those medium businesses, not the micro and smaller businesses, but who are ready to take the next step in their entrepreneurship journey. And for those women, because it's a bit more face-to-face and a bit more intensive, we're hoping to support this year 200 women in Kenya. And of course, we're able to do that because of working with people with local expertise like Synapis, and thanks to, as I said already, DHL. So let me give you an example of some of the Kenyan women we've been working for. I've spoken about this lady before, actually, because she's called Wangari, and she owns an organic soap making business. And she says that without the app, she wouldn't have been able to survive the pandemic, because what it did was it helped her to launch an e-commerce platform and gave her hints and tips about how to stay relevant and visible online. Because it's not enough just to sort of open a website. You then have to make it so that people want to come to your website and look at your products and buy from you rather than from someone else. Or the Zazilio had a grocery store, and last year her husband lost his job due to COVID-19. She had a shop already, but she was finding difficulty stocking her shop just because of the problems that have been caused and exacerbated by COVID-19. But she used the app to help her manage her business better, and so understand a little bit better about supply and demand and costing and sourcing. And as a result of that, though she became the sole breadwinner of her family, the family was able to keep going, you know, which is a big issue. But they're just two of the many, well, over 1,200 women that we worked with. Right. And so we very much hope that we will get to a position. We do this program in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we've supported over 22,500 women, and Kenya is our the next place that we want to see an expansion like that in the years to come.
And Kenyan women would be delighted to hear that. So how can potential beneficiaries then of this program engage the foundation and the project? Should they be going online to the App Store to download Herventure, or how does it work?
Absolutely. They should get involved and download it, start the program, start talking to each other, and we will we very much look forward to learning from them, because this is, you know, this year's Herventure has learned from the feedback we've got from last year's Herventure. It's learned from our experiences in Nigeria. We also do this in Vietnam and Indonesia, so there's different, obviously slightly different because of the different rules and regulations there, but nevertheless, the basic premises about how you run your business are universal. And so we take very much the feedback back and try and improve it, try and make it more interesting. But it's based on this idea that you can do it around your job, when you're working, your childcare arrangements, or, you know, when you're having your hair done, if you can still, we just about can now have our hair done again in the UK, you know, and you've got some time for a moment to take some time to yourself.
Right.
5 or 6 minutes on the app can give you an idea that can transform your business.
I want to go beyond that now to talk about women in Africa and what's next for the foundation. A lot of women, in terms of barriers to business, we talk about, you know, challenges in financing, for instance.
Yeah.
And they would say, can the Cherie Blair Foundation provide financing? How can it help us get the money we need to take our businesses to the next level, or to at least stabilize our businesses in the pandemic? What would you say about that, and your prospects in sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, we have 2 programs that specifically look at how you go to the next level. We don't ourselves make grants, but what we do is help the women that we work with be able to present themselves to those people who have money, so that they're well prepared and more likely, therefore, to get them. So that's partly the Road to Growth that I was talking about, where the women go on a more intensive 6-week to 2-month course, some of which is face-to-face, and a lot of which is still online. And there's a lot of modules in that about business planning, how you draw up a business plan, how you draw up a budget, along with working with local banks and others, so people can come and make presentations about what loans that are already available and what other ways, not just loans, but other ways that you can raise finance for business. On top of that, we have our global mentoring platform, where and this is for women who have good access to the internet and good English, which in Kenya is a given. What we do there is we team them up for a year with a man or woman mentor, who then is given a specific task. I want to prepare my business to raise venture capital or whatever it is, and we match them according to the skills and the needs, and then for a year, then through regular meetings online, we have had great success there in preparing women to go to that next level. The moment our next intake on the mentoring program starts in May, so that's closed, but we will open again on the 14th of June for our intake in August. And if any of the women who are entrepreneurs here who feel that that might be something that they could benefit from, then for online cross-border mentoring, and also belonging to a community online with other women, so there's plenty of opportunity to share with the other women who are also being mentored, and graduates as well, then that is something as well. If they go online to our website, www.cherieBlairFoundation.org, they can see how to apply to go on the mentoring platform.
We're about to conclude, and I'm cognizant of your time. We were only to be here for 30 minutes. So if you'd indulge me a minute or 2 more, ma'am. I earlier mentioned that you are a strong voice in politics, and that excites me particularly because I cover politics. And you have a family legacy in politics. And like you said, many don't know that you joined the party even before your husband, and that you continue to shape British politics in your own right. How does politics shape opportunities for women and girls? And how should women engage the political space in Africa, in Kenya specifically? We're coming up to an election cycle. And how then can they, shape their fortunes and that of the continent, not just by being a politician, but impacting economics and policy and what have you?
Well, I think first of all, women have to be at the front and center of economic policy, of social policy, of foreign policy. You know, women, 50% of the population, they absolutely need to have their voices heard. And that goes to, of course, making sure that you have sufficient women in the Kenyan parliament. And Kenyan parliament could do better on that respect, for sure, compared to some other parliaments in Africa. And you know, I think it absolutely does make a difference when you have women's voices, whether it's in relation to violence against women or harassment, or whether it's about the priorities we need to give to social care and education. You know, the women have a real contribution to make to that based on their own experiences of these things. And if Parliament doesn't hear these things, if the country doesn't see the women's contribution to that, then things do not move as fast as they should. And one of the things we're trying to do in our programs actually is we're piloting a new element of our in-country programs to equip women entrepreneurs with skills like the ones on the road to growth, to help them so that they can learn to communicate, to show leadership skills, and you know, teaching them a bit more about how they may go about influencing the town, the state, the country in which they live, because it's very important. And one of the ways we also do that, of course, is by trying to encourage the women we work with to tell their own stories and to publicize them on our website and as much as we can in everything that we do. But I mean, Kenya, there's only 21% of the seats in Parliament are held by women, and less than a third of the ministerial positions. So working towards equal representation would be a good start. I remember in '97, it was the first time ever the number of women in the British Parliament went above 100, and that was because my husband took a policy decision to promote women candidates. And you know, we're now over 30% of women in Parliament, but that was from, but before '97 it was more like 6 or 7%. So you know, we've come a long way, and you can do it by understanding it's not just promoting women for the sake of it. It's actually because women's voices, women's experience is important and is different from men's, and together combining those experiences tend to lead to better policy making.
I'm tempted to ask how much you had to do with that policy decision.
Well, I always think that being married to the Prime Minister might give you influence, but it shouldn't give you power. And if you really want to shape policy, then girl, you stand up there and you get yourself elected. I did stand for Parliament once in 1983 when my husband also stood, but he stood in a safe seat and won, and I stood in a seat that even in '97 did not become a Labour seat, and so I lost. But you know, today if a young woman wants to shape policy, then you know, there's opportunities for her to go into politics, either as an advisor, as a civil servant, or indeed, especially as a politician herself.
That door is still open to you, ma'am. Considering it?
At the moment, I think I'm still very much focused on my legal career, because which is very much now to do about international trade and international law and business and human rights. So continuing those themes, and of course my wonderful foundation, which enables me to meet so many amazing women around the world. And I can still remember, actually, you know, I'm so pleased to hear that you've got a woman Chief Justice, because I can remember many happy visits where I met with the members of the bar in Kenya and talked to some of the women judges there, and it's great to see a woman Chief Justice, and I'm sure she will be herself a great role model for other young women who are looking to find a career like I did in the law.
Indeed, that is our hope as well. Mrs. Blair, you've been very gracious with your time, and I know we've taken perhaps a little too much of it, but I want to thank you. Oh, thank you, ma'am. Thank
It's
you.
my pleasure. It was delightful to talk to you, and I wish you luck with your career. And if you ever fancy a bit of business experience, try downloading Herventure.
Absolutely. I will do that. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Congratulations to the foundation and the partners for the launch of the Road to Growth program here in Kenya. We look forward to many, many women downloading the app and benefiting from, of course, the resources that your organization has been able to.
And by the way, one thing, we want mentors as well as mentees from Kenya. So, you know, that's another thing you could think of. You could yourself become a mentor. We ask for people with over 7 years business experience, but, you know, so we're not looking, you know, there's plenty of great business people in Kenya who have a lot to offer as a mentor. They wouldn't be offering it to people in Kenya. They would be matched with people in other countries, maybe even in other continents. But it's a great way to learn about the world and the places in which you may do business.
That's an incredible opportunity. And would they just, I suppose, get in touch with the foundation?
Again, on the website. If they look on the website, you can apply to be a mentee, but you can also apply to be a mentor, and we provide training for that.
Fantastic. An opportunity I hope will certainly be taken up. Mrs. Blair, thank you once again. We hope that you will be able to visit us here in Kenya soon, and that the businesses you've supported would also be able to, you know, come to London and do a thing or two there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's a date.
Fantastic. Our participants, we thank you also for joining this webinar. If you have any questions or comments on the project, please do email media@cherieblairfoundation.org. That's media@cherieblairfoundation.org. And this recording will be available on their website as well. That concludes our webinar this evening. Have a very good evening and all the best to you and yours. Goodbye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.